It's the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. It's night 2 of WrestleMania, and I can't say that anyone's blaming ya. The show is now 48 hours long, so I had more time to butcher the song on the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. Ba-da-ba-da. Whoa, yay. We just bushwhacked our way through an entire WrestleMania weekend, you crazy cats. You rabid dogs, frothing at the mouth, chomping at the bit, drool dribbling down your chin, stacked on one another like hermit crabs crawling out of a bucket. You're goddamn champions. Hey, everybody. What's going on, Bob Squad? It's me, too. It is night 2. It is the end. Oh, God help us, of WrestleMania weekend. I don't see Raw, the Hulu edition of Raw, until Tuesday, which means sometime Wednesday. You'll see that. So thankfully, you get a little bit of a breather. You and me both. From WWE this weekend. Let's jump right into it. The show opens with Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. Night 2 followed Night 1 10 times better than I thought it would. They did a lot of something that they haven't done in years. They just had surprises. Just surprises. And not even crazy, monumentous, historical surprises. Just something just to keep you guessing. And that's so important. And they lost track of that. And this was the first WrestleMania to me. I gotta say, and it's the first one that's felt fun and important, but most importantly fun, in the last, I don't know, 5 or 7, 8 years, something like that. So I'm giving it a thumbs up already the whole weekend. It's a lot of wrestling, but I mean, it was 2 4-hour things, which is honestly, it is better than one 7-8 hour show. Again, I did not watch any pre-show. Well, I watched the last 15 minutes of the pre-show while I was eating a sandwich, but I didn't tune in for like the in my time it's 3 p.m. for the pre-show and 5 p.m. is when the event starts. God help us. So I didn't tire myself out extra with 2 hours of just arguing. And if there were pre-show matches, I don't know what they were. I don't care. I'm hoping there were none. They did a battle royal on Sound Friday. Anyway, okay, let's move on. Night 2. I mentioned Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. That was nice. John Cena's soothing voice. Triple H. Great surprise. Again, this is what I was talking about. The little surprises. He shows up, and everyone cheers and gives him a wild ovation. He spits water all over his suit, and the sleeves of his suit get all bunched up, but that is okay. And he leaves his boots in the middle of the ring as a significance, as a symbol that his career is really done, and he just says thank you and welcome to WrestleMania. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. No complaints there. Gable Stevenson, he is there as well. They remind us that Gable Stevenson is there. Okay, very good. We open this show, the wrestling part, with a tag team triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team Championships. RK Bro versus the Alpha Academy versus the Street Profits. RK Bro are victorious here. This was fun and fast and what it needed to be. The bunching up to catch each other for the dives, a bit silly. Not as egregious as the way AEW does it, but we didn't need it. Because the finish is what everyone's going to remember. This finish was great. Montez Ford is about to do the big high friggity froggity splash off the top turnbuckle. Riddle sneaks up from the ring apron, it's the hardest part of the ring. He does a springboard onto the rope and hits an RKO on Montez from there, and that could have been the finish because they went bananas for it. I went bananas for it. I don't go bananas for like physical acrobatic stuff that much, but I didn't see it coming, and that was the bigger thing. It wasn't just the athleticism, which is impressive enough. The timing of the two guys, no, it's the surprise. Like I couldn't see it coming. And a lot of that is credit to the camera work too, making sure we don't see Riddle in the shot beforehand while he's on the apron, which is the hardest part of the ring. And then that could have been a finish, and people would have been very happy with it. But then Gable goes for like a diving headbutt type of thing off the top turnbuckle, and Randy catches him in the RKO and gets the 1, 2, 3. And okie dokie. And that was the right move. RK Bro retains. They're very popular. There's no real reason to take it off of them. So leave it where it is. And it made everyone happy. Here we have a conversation of the Gables. So this Gable Stevenson comes in to join the Street Profits and the RK Bro in a WrestleMania toast. I don't know what they were drinking, but they all have red party cups like they go to college. And Chad Gable gets up from this RKO, which I didn't really like. He slaps the cup out of Gable Stevenson's hand, so we have an argument of the Gables. And he has the microphone. He says something to Gable Stevenson. Not really much. He just does his shush catchphrase or something like that. And Gable Stevenson picks him up in a belly-to-belly, holds him for a bit, shows his strength, and gives him a big suplex or two. At least one, but it maybe gave him two. I really don't remember. But whatever, and then Gable Stevenson joins the four good guys, and they all toast WrestleMania in their red frat boy party cups. Everyone has a great time. Number 2, was a match I was looking the most forward to. Omos comes to the ring, and he is sweaty. He is so sweaty. He is wearing a furry coat in Dallas. He's very sweaty. And Bobby Lashley makes his way to the ring as well, and Lashley is looking huge. He's got red and black tights. No MVP again. I think they're just dropping it and keeping no doubt that Bobby Lashley is 100% good guy, which is fine. I like MVP, but I have a theory on why that is, but that'll tie in later. There was a sign in the audience. I usually hate signs, but once in a while one will make me giggle. This one says, Meltzer fears facts, and I kind of LOL'd at that. For the notes of this match, I wrote, yikes. Omos is so big, like, Lashley dwarfs everyone, and Omos is dwarfing, or he's making, he's not dwarfing, he's making Lashley look regular size, and that was just odd, because Lashley is not a regular size man by any stretch of the imagination. He is a huge human being. But Lashley, I think, definitely had trouble moving Omos to where he wanted to move Omos. This is Omos' longest singles match, of course, and Omos has been in tag team matches longer, but Omos was in those long tag team matches for a minute, and AJ Styles had wrestled the other 9 minutes or whatever the hell it was. So yeah, so you could just call this Omos' longest match for the all intents and purposes. I like saying that. Yeah, Lashley had trouble moving him around, it looked like, and getting Omos to where he wants. At one point, well, at several points, there were squashes in the turnbuckles where the timing just wasn't right, and Omos would kind of half squish him, and you couldn't tell if Lashley had moved or Omos was going around. He just had bad aim. He's not a greatly coordinated guy. And at one point, Lashley, I don't think this was intentional, but Lashley was bouncing off the ropes to give Omos a spear, and he speared Omos' back, because I really do think, again, you never really know unless you're one of the two guys, so I hate, let me tell you what they did. I wasn't wrestling then. But I just have the hunch that Lashley never intended to do a spear to Omos' kidneys. That just is too awkward. And it does happen again later with Roman and Brock. I think that's just a coincidence. That there was just weird communication on the spears on this night for whatever the hell the reason. And then Lashley hits a regular spear to the stomach. He probably just did it again because he knows that's the one they're going to replay, and he can't have them replaying a spear to the back because it was just so ugly that he just had to be like, nope, call an audible. I'm the veteran. Get up, stand there, and stare at me while I do it. Who cares? We need the replay because it's so important. You need that. Lashley beats him 1, 2, 3, which leads me to believe that Lashley, a giant beating this giant who was undefeated, and I really think all you can get of Omos was keep him dominant for several months until somebody beats him and someone else benefits from beating him. Like, I really think that's all there is to Omos. And if you're looking to build up a credible contender for the winner of Roman versus Brock, then Lashley would be the guy, and Omos would be a thing Lashley can hang on his hat on his way to challenge one of them. Is just my opinion. My guess is that Lashley is the next contender for whatever the hell the next big pay-per-view is. I don't know. If it's not, well, then I'm wrong. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, the third match. I'm going to get through this quickly. Sami Zayn wrestles Johnny Knoxville in a no DQ war. This was an embarrassment, and I really hated that this made it onto a WrestleMania. Sammy's kicking the crap out of him as he should, and Knoxville, a 50-something-year-old gray-haired non-athlete, is using gags to defeat Sami Zayn. He's using an air horn and a machine with a foot on it that kicks Sami in the balls, and a giant mechanical hand comes out of nowhere to slap Sami. And then there's mouse traps and other Jackass members such as Wee Man and then the guy in the thong come dancing around, and yes, it's impressive to see Wee Man do the body slam onto Sami. I mean, obviously Sami's posting, but just to get that kind of leverage with a guy that short, it's still very difficult to do and impressive and blah blah blah. But ultimately, Sami falls off the top turnbuckle. Sami gets tased in the testicles, and it's all very stupid. There's a fire extinguisher, which wasn't as bad. There's a table at ringside by the apron, which is the hardest part of the ring, and there's mouse traps all over it. I'm not kidding. There's mouse traps all over it. And Knoxville shoves Zayn off the turnbuckle, who does a somersault through the table covered with mouse traps. And then they pull out a comically oversized mouse trap, which malfunctions, and Knoxville fixes it to his credit, and it slams and it crushes Sami's chest, and he's stuck, and Knoxville pins him. Well, first of all, if you're going to do that, it could have been 10 minutes instead of 20. Like, it was crazily long. Crazily long. I didn't like it at all. A lot of people seem to enjoy it. I'm going to be in a minority. I think it was disgusting. I hated this was on WrestleMania, and it was embarrassing. And I'm glad it was as far away from the main event as possible, just to get as little stink on the main event as humanly possible. So Johnny Knoxville has defeated Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. And it's not because, I love Sami Zayn and what the work rate, which is a fake thing, and the moves and blah, 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 blah. Work rate's not a real wrestling term. It's made up, by the way, by the fans. And today's wrestlers, now they use it, but it's all bullshit. There's no such thing. You're a good worker, you're not a good worker. And Sami was working his ass off to sell and, of course, fly around and try to make this thing entertaining and do all the stalling he could to keep buying Knoxville time after he would slam Knoxville here and there. And Sami definitely had his working shoes on. I've resigned myself to the fact that, okay, celebrities are going to come in, and there are certain wrestlers like a Sami Zayn where the Sami Zayns will be made a fool out of for the celebrities one and done. And even though that goes against wrestling principle, it's just going to happen, and that's reality. And I've gotten over that. I like to think I have. Clearly not all the way. But the absurd Looney Tunes and Wile E. Coyote-ness of how we're doing this, it's not like the SmackDown, it's Thanksgiving, we're having a stupid food fight gimmicky match, those are dumb enough. Or the Raw or SmackDown that's closest to Christmas, we have some Christmas themed thing where we hit each other with presents, which are just empty cardboard boxes and wrapping paper. And there's a food fight, of course. Like, okay, I can get over it. It's WrestleMania. It's embarrassing. Okay, the free show by the holiday, because there's 52 of the damn things a year. The free show closest to Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you just kind of go with it and go, okay. They know their ratings are going to be low on this if SmackDown falls on the same night as Christmas Eve or something like that. They know the ratings are low, so here's some corny crap, and you could, by the following show would be New Year's anyways. They're just going to gloss over it and just eat the loss for 2 weeks and then go back to business. Where the ratings are only slightly higher because it's modern WWE. LOL. Okay, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Because there's too much good on this show. So let's move past that. The 4 women's team championships was not part of the good on the show. I'm sorry. Here, a lot of things hurt them. The fact that both the multi-team tag matches are on the same show, and both the singles women's championship matches are on the same night, that didn't help anyone. I don't think it helped Charlotte and Ronda. I don't think it helped the 4 women teams here. I assumed in my head when I heard those matches announced, I just assumed Becky Bianca would be a different night than Ronda, Charlotte, and the 3 male teams and the 4 female teams would just be on different nights. I just put that in my head because I'm like, well, why the hell would they be on the same? Clearly they'll divvy those up. And they didn't. And because the show opened so well with those 3 teams, these 4 teams here with the women, they had an uphill battle all the way. And they're following a bunch of silliness, and everyone's now reconditioned to laugh at wrestling for the rest of the night. So they had to do all they can do. Carmella, unfortunately, is it me, or has, for a woman that hot to have developed go-away heat, am I the only one sensing that, or am I in the minority? I don't know. The mask gimmick on her just never worked. So it's Carmella and Zelina versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler and Natalya versus Naomi and Sasha Banks. And Zelina and Carmella are the tag team champions. So Corey's on commentary, and he's finally acknowledged he's engaged and going to get married to Carmella like any day now or this weekend or something like that. And cool, but it doesn't help. His commentary during her matches, that doesn't really help her. She does less than ever in the ring. It's all gimmicked. And it's a lot of over-the-top shrieking. Like, the hysterical disbelief that you got a 2 count on someone, I guess it just gets to be so much. And it just makes all of them look silly. Because some of them join in, some don't. I don't buy Liv Morgan as an equal to Rhea Ripley or nearly as tough as her. They do this goofy spot where there's 8 women, right? So on one side, he got 2 women trying to do a superplex to one, and on the other corner, the opposite corner, you have the same thing. So that's 6 women up on the turnbuckles on each turn, 3 on each turnbuckle, and both Liv and Rhea sneak up behind the piles of 3 and each powerbomb the piles of 3 into all of them taking a big superplex bump, if that makes any sense at all. But I said it because it happened. The thing is, Rhea looks strong enough to do that, and Liv does not. And you just told me that Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley are equally powerful, and I don't believe you. It looks really... The spot looks silly enough. I think if 4 of the women sat it out, and Rhea did that to another 3 of them, like, okay, cool, fine. It's a little overdone. It's a lot overdone. But we've seen worse, so just do that. They didn't do that. Naomi and Sasha Banks win the tag team championships. They pin, they don't pin Zelina and Carmella, I don't think. I think they pin either... Oh god, who did they beat? I don't know. I think they beat Shayna and Natalya. I don't think they... Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think they pinned the current champions, which makes sense because this is multi-team matches and you need to have rematches. So obviously Carmella and Zelina can give that speech. Who knows? Maybe the champs did get beat. I don't know. Sasha pinned somebody, and I don't think it was Rhea or Liv who got. I think Sasha and Naomi definitely beat heels, which Naomi as a title holder makes all of the Bloodline champions, if you count her. Well, she's not officially on TV part, but Roman and the Usos, and one of the Usos, Jimmy? I'm sorry, I don't know, is married to Naomi. So, and I'm surprised they never did that with Naomi when they had nothing for her to do. I don't know the answer, but there you go, new champions there. What happens next? Anything at all? Edge and AJ Styles wrestle. Edge enters on a throne from the ground, which is very Triple H-ish, but the black and gold is also the Undertaker's colors. I don't know what he's supposed to be. I didn't get it. They called him the god of impotence or something, or the omnipotent one. Oh, Jesus Christ. Maybe I'm the god of impotence. Alright, enough, Bob. You done there? Edge and AJ Styles wrestle a wonderful, wonderful pro wrestling match, and everyone is really getting into it. I knew it was going to be a slow build, just knowing those two. I'm like, okay, they're going to let everyone think this is going to be a sleeper for 5 minutes, or a stinker or whatever, and it's not. And they're just going to get there. They're going to get there when they're going to get there, and they sell everything so well, and all these little things they add in. All these perfect little details they add in when they're in holds and trying to get out of them, and right before they even after they hit moves, they're still selling things. There's just too much that was perfect this match. Even things like AJ does he's on the ring apron's hardest part of the ring. He does a 450 off the springboard, and Edge puts the knees up. So of course, naturally, obviously AJ's selling his stomach, but Edge is also selling one of his knees. So later, AJ can go to that knee. I don't even remember if he did, honestly, because this was really weird. So they have this great match, and Damian Priest is just hanging out. And again, it's a good finish because AJ Styles is standing on the ring apron, his hardest part of the ring, and it's just that 1 second where he turns to look because he doesn't expect to see Priest. Then he goes to the springboard to hit that forearm, goes back to what he was doing, and after the out of the springboard, he gets caught in a spear. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And Priest and Edge stare at each other, and they laugh and raise each other's hands. And I guess Priest is now the apprentice of Edge, which is a callback to stuff they've mentioned on the show before, and they'll probably replay all that a year or 2 years ago or whatever it was, with Edge saying, "I like this Damian Priest guy. You're all right, Priest." And of course, whoever's feuding with Edge can wrestle Priest because Edge isn't going to wrestle on TV, so they're going to wrestle Damian Priest. Don't say obviously, who knows, but I would expect AJ Styles and Priest are going to have a few matches. And if Priest does get his win back, it'll be on a less important pay-per-view because WrestleMania is the tippy top there. I don't really have too much of a problem with the finish. I think if that's the direction they're headed, I kind of feel like, in many ways, the longer a match goes and the more competitive and athletic it is, then when you start with these little screwball finishes, it's somewhat more offensive. I don't cry when we don't get clean finishes. It's pro wrestling. Even if it is WrestleMania, doesn't matter. People cheat to win. And heels are going to win at WrestleMania. A WrestleMania like last year, where it was just a heel WrestleMania, where all the saddest stuff possible could happen. On the first WrestleMania, where there's live people there again, yeah, that was terrible. Because this was not a heel WrestleMania by any stretch. They did everything they could to make us happy for 48 hours, so I'm not saying this one was. This one was not heel WrestleMania. You want mostly baby faces to win at WrestleMania, but a few snags, a few FUs, a few pulling the carpet out from under your feet there. But, so that's where this is headed. So this is one of those Mania matches where it's more about where we're headed as opposed to putting a bow on something. So that's okay there. This was puzzling and not a lot of people liked it. The New Day. Coming off Big E's serious, terrible injury, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston are dressed in Big E-styled outfits. They wrestle Sheamus and Ridge Holland. Nothing to say. In like 2 minutes, the bad guys just won. It felt a little rushed anyway. The Butch, or formerly Pete Dunne, just kept jumping up in the ring apron, his hardest part of the ring, and creating all kinds of distractions, which is similar to the finish of the match before. So, the distraction thing is a little much, but yeah, and somebody got hit with a bro kick, and I think Woods got pinned by Ridge Holland, I want to say. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, SmackDown WrestleMania rematch and New Day wins, but that's less important. The Undertaker shows up again in his suit, and he waves, and everyone loses their minds because they probably assumed he wouldn't be there because he was there the night before. So that's very cool. And then Vince McMahon shows up. This is crazy. Introduces Austin Theory, who wrestles Pat McAfee. And Pat and Austin have this terrific match. It's a bit more grounded and a bit more realistic than the one Pat had with Adam Cole. There's no Canadian destroyers or this, that, and the other thing. But they have a good one, and Pat wins. What move did Pat use to win? He rolled up Theory somehow. I forget how, but Pat was competitive enough, and they mentioned his athletic background, and Austin being too cocky, and Mr. McMahon is sitting at ringside, and the announcers are having fun with that. And then Mr. McMahon, to everyone's surprise, to my surprise, takes off his suit jacket and his dress shirt. He's got his classic black tank top on. And he says, ring the bell, and now Vince McMahon is 77, 76. He's going to wrestle. But he looks 98 is the thing. And he's going to wrestle Pat McAfee. And people are losing their shit. And Pat runs into several clotheslines where Vince raised his arm enough to clothesline Pat in the ribs. But whatever. And Theory had snuck up from behind Pat and jumped him, or hit him with a forearm before the bell. Anyway, they take a football and they kick it into his ribs, and Vince is teasing like he's going to punt the football, but we know Vince McMahon has never, you can tell by the way he's holding it, he's never held a football, let alone kicked one in his life. So he does this weird thing where he holds it and he just straight kicks it into Pat's ribs, and the referee counts 3, and Pat McAfee is 1-1 on WrestleMania, and it's actually Vince McMahon's first WrestleMania pinfall victory. If it matters, it doesn't. That's not what he's there for. So Vince McMahon and Pat McAfee are celebrating, and the place comes unglued again because Steve Austin's music hits. Just like The Undertaker, just like Triple H, just like Mr. McMahon. They did not think they would see any of these people tonight, and that's what I'm talking about, the surprises. They're wild and fun surprises. Steve Austin is coming out there, and he's mouthing off to Vince McMahon, of course. Everyone's losing it. Everyone's standing up, and Austin does some punches and a stunner to Austin Theory. He shoves him out of the ring, boots him out of the ring. And then it's Austin and Vince, and they don't ring a bell. It's not an official match at this point, who cares? But they agree to have a beer. And it's Lucy and Charlie Brown in a football. Mr. McMahon is assured by Steve Austin, I'm not going to stunner you. We're just going to drink a friendly beer together. Well, okay. And Mr. McMahon puts his finger up and he tastes the beer, and he does like a little wine sipping thing too, which is a funny little add-on. And then of course they clink the beers, and Austin gives McMahon the boot. And this was sad but funny and not a big deal. Some people were crying, "Who's the worst stunner ever?" Yeah, but it wasn't. It was, but it wasn't. Austin gives Vince the boot, and Vince completely loses his balance and stumbles backwards. And Austin can't grab him, so Austin has to pick Vince back up off the second rope and just do the stunner. And it was fine. We've actually seen worse stunners, believe it or not. Because the stunner itself wasn't so bad, it was the fact that the setup... Because Vince has no balance. What's he supposed to do? And, and Austin is laughing his ass off. He does not care that this move was botched. Who's a botch? Shut up, internet fans. Yeah, you know, it's like the Big Lebowski says when he's yelling with Walter in the car. He goes, "You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole." Yeah, the point, it was a botch. Okay, it doesn't matter. Steve Austin stunned Mr. McMahon. And he got enough of it where you can replay it and mess with the audio. Who's outside? Somebody's outside messing with me? Never mind. They got enough of it where you can replay it and edit it, and it looks like a good enough stunner. It doesn't matter. Austin was grinning ear to ear. He couldn't stop laughing at the way it went down. He knows it's not his fault, and no one's in trouble. Who's Vince McMahon going to yell at himself? and Austin has his beers, and he goes overboard with the beers, and it places. Oh, and then Austin invites Pat McAfee into the ring, and they share a beer, and of course, he gives Pat McAfee the stunner, and then you see later on, Pat McAfee, unconscious, quote unquote, on the floor pouring a beer into his own mouth. Really silly, and what a mess that must be. I don't know if that. I'm hoping they change the canvas, because I'm just looking at all that beer. I'm like, that ring must stink. Oh God. They probably did. They had time to, but I didn't think to look. By the time you see so many packages and this, that, and the other thing, it's 10, 15 minutes later till the goddamn match starts. I just forgot at that point to look. So this was, again, a fun surprise. Austin, Triple H, Mr. McMahon, The Undertaker. None of which we necessarily assumed we would see, because we didn't need Vince McMahon there physically. Well, of course he's going to be there physically. We don't need him on camera to do the Austin Theory Pat McAfee match. And I just assumed he wouldn't be. I just assumed the announcers would take care of the presence of McMahon. So I was very surprised to hear the music and then the intro and everything else. But that's that. I think you would put Theory with Kevin Owens after this. No? Yes? No? I don't know. Mark, what do you think? Just going to ask people individually while I record these. Main event time. Roman and Brock. This was entertaining, and I was really fighting off falling asleep from a food coma. But nice long intros. Roman enters first. They're both champions. Paul Heyman takes the microphone away from the ring announcer to introduce Roman, and Brock Lesnar does the same to introduce himself. And they have this match. Brock's kicking his ass. Paul Heyman creates a distraction. The barricade has to break. Yay, barricade. There were no chairs or tables in this. You didn't need to. And what's the point after we saw stupid mouse traps going on earlier? There was the barricade thing, and Roman gets his heat on Brock, and Brock's coming back, and there's some kickouts of some spears, some kickouts of an F5, at least one F5 that I know of. What happened here? A lot of German suplexes, so it looks like Brock's on his way to victory. They do a ref bump, which is interesting. Only one of the weekend that I know of. Interesting and believable how they did it too. It was a believable ref bump. They had Brock runs into the corner where the referee is. Brock stops himself, puts his hand on the top rope, both his hands on the top rope, so he doesn't crash into the ref. Because Brock doesn't want to knock out the ref. It's not because he loves the referee. He doesn't give a shit about the referee, but he wants to win this match. But stopping himself, he turns around, and Roman spears him, and both Roman and Brock's weight crushes the referee in the corner. Now, this is great, because now you have an excuse to keep the referee down for a minute or two. For way longer than when a referee... No, when a referee is grazed by a wrestler's shoulder, and now he's unconscious for 5 minutes. It's like, well, that's always silly. But this is believable, because now you got damn near 600 pounds crushing you in the corner. And when Roman and Brock are known to be intense, and if they're killing each other, they can kill this normal man, just one of them alone. So really, I mean, I would have been okay with them sending out a second referee to finish refereeing the match, just by saying, look, if that guy possibly can't continue refereeing this match, he's dead. I would have been okay with that, and I actually thought they were going to do that. I think they just let him recover, but let's make a note of that, because that made sense. And Roman did the illegal damage in and out. Roman did a low blow to Brock, hit him in his testicles, hit him overhead with the belt, and referee comes to 1-2, 2 7/8 kick out. Really good, because that could have been the finish, and we all bought that might be the finish, more so than not. I think Roman goes for another spear, gets caught in the Kimura arm lock. He's in it for a very long time, and you think he's going to tap, and I thought he might tap, and that might be the finish. Paul Heyman kind of nudges the rope. They kind of half caught it with the camera. Heyman pushes in the rope. Roman grabs it, so the referee has to break it. Count of 5. And we heard Roman telling Heyman, my shoulder's gone, and Heyman's ignoring him, like, no, my tribal chief, you gotta rise up, my tribal chief. His groveling and sniveling and ass kissing is so wonderful. And Rock lifts Roman up for the F5. Roman shoves him off, and with his good shoulder, he made sure not to use the left when he was selling. With his right shoulder, he spears Brock. And that was, what do you call it? That was the 1-2-3 finish. Roman pins him while holding that shoulder. And the announcer said maybe he snapped it back in place. And Roman holds both belts. And on his left shoulder, he's holding the belt half as high, but then he slowly raises it. So I think either Brock really popped it out and Roman put it back in place, or they're just selling awesome. I don't know, but either situation is completely believable. And Brock does sell that one spear for a long time. I'm like, okay, so this is the Roman Reigns show. So and I assume that's why Lashley's portrayed as a face, Bobby Lashley, so he can use that Omos victory as like, hey, I went back in the game. I was robbed. I was taken out of that elimination chamber. I never really lost the championship to begin with. That's a very solid argument. So. And during the AJ Edge match, I actually thought AJ was going to win, and they were going to plead a case for AJ or Lashley to be the number one contender. But looks like AJ, he lost that, and he'll be staying with Edge and Priest for a little bit. Final thoughts. Exceeded my expectations by a lot. A thumbs up for the 2 nights of WrestleMania. This is the 3rd year in a row they've done the 2-night WrestleMania. Obviously, the first year with COVID, with no people, and they did WrestleMania in a warehouse, was a different wild and wacky situation. I don't fault anything that happened that weekend. I thought last year's 2-day WrestleMania was not a lot of good. I thought a lot of forgettable and a lot of bad happened in that WrestleMania. I think here, it was a lot of nostalgia and a lot of stuff that really doesn't affect the TV show. At the same time, I've been saying for a year or so, the biggest heel in WWE is WWE. Fans don't hate any one wrestler like they hate the company. And this made you feel good about watching the show and not hate them. We can't have Taker waving and Austin stunning and getting physical and drink forever. We still need new stars. This was nice, but it's not just that we got to see Austin, Undertaker, Triple H, and McMahon. They got the biggest pops. That's not necessarily good. It's great for the show. I think Austin's was good because he's a guy we don't see all the time. And he pretty much told you, I'm having my last match right now. And we do believe him because the 19-year gap between his last match and his other last match is a hell of a lot bigger than a lot of other guys, like 2-year gap or whenever they say. And then you ever see him back 5, 6, 7 years later. So we were pretty well convinced. And Austin always did everything he could to squash teasing it. I know Shawn did that one match in Saudi Arabia. I get it. But I don't blame him for that. I don't even count that. No one talks about it. Now that for me was an appearance in tights. That match, whatever it was. The fact that it just happened over there was like it didn't count to me. I'm way off track here. But what does this hold for the future? I don't know. The Raw after WrestleMania is usually big events, big turns, big debuts, big returns. And you think SmackDown would be too, because there's this 3-day gap between the two of them. It just doesn't feel the same to me. So, who knows? That Veer guy is finally going to wrestle, I guess. I hope that doesn't make Hulu after all this waiting. It'll just be too funny. So who the hell knows? I don't know the answer. What's in the future for Cody Rhodes? Is he even going to be a Raw guy? Who's to say necessarily? I think we assumed he would be because of Seth, and Seth probably has to get that win back. I don't know the answer, but it'll be interesting. So Oh, one other thing. This surprised me too. The bumps Edge is still taking. Him and AJ Styles were both on each side of the turnbuckle, and AJ gives him like a superplex. AJ's actually only standing on the first bottom turnbuckle, but still, he gives him a superplex, and they both land on the ring apron, which is the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. You got the guy in an abdominal stretch, and you grab the rope for extra leverage. Then you get a concussion from the angry rush, and you get paid with a diet soft beverage on the hardest part of the ring. The hardest part of the ring. Ba-da-ba-da.